Okay, so I have two things I want to talk about. Hopefully, they won't take too long, but the things that bug me just about life in general and people in general. They're also YouTube related, so if that's not something you're interested in listening to me ramble about, then don't bother watching for, saving your time, I guess. So, first things first. There's the whole Onision documentary, and then there's people commentating on it and all that, right? Two of those people being Jaclyn Glenn, who is married now, so it's Jaclyn Gray, I believe, and Edwin Costa, I think his name is. They both have been making, well, at least Jaclyn I know has made reactions to every documentary episode, and Edwin just posted like almost a day ago, not quite, but it's something along those lines, about the aftermath of all of that, and then moving on, obviously. And Jaclyn had in the second episode reaction criticized Edwin for not responding to the lack of promises kept by Chris Hansen and the Discovery Plus and those people. Correction, it was the third that criticized him being upset about the second video and like how he felt like over half the video was more about him than anything else. And then in the third one, Jaclyn criticizes Edwin for not saying anything for whatever reason, like on Twitter or on in a video or something. And Edwin's video addresses that, the one that I mentioned earlier that went up. And he's from what I can see, very remorseful and regretful of the whole being a part of it at all. And that's kind of the whole point Jaclyn was trying to make, because she didn't think that he should have been a part of the documentary at all. From what I could tell, she just didn't trust them, which makes sense given that Chris Hansen and Discovery Plus promised that they wouldn't tell the stories of the victims of Onision because they did not consent to their stories being told in a paywall platform. It was already on YouTube, and they didn't want to go through it again. They were done. But they still went through with it, only blurring the faces of the victims. And not even the titles of the YouTube videos. They can just go look up and see their face anyway. So it's moot. And justifiably, the internet was upset with that, especially the people that have been working on it and telling these stories of Onision and the victims who have gone through so much and do not deserve this. Everyone is upset. Now, in Edwin's most recent video, as of recording, he talks about how Jaclyn makes a point about asking which girl he was referring to in one of his earlier videos before the documentary went out, I believe. He talks about how when the first girl came out publicly and started saying her piece, then the other girls were emboldened to do the same thing because they knew that they weren't alone. And Jaclyn, I think, just misconstrued what he was trying to say and it didn't connect in her head, so she thought it was just like a miscommunication kind of thing. And she was like, which girl are you talking about here? I don't understand. And then Edwin says something along the lines of, I wasn't talking about a specific girl. I was just saying that when someone was brave enough to make a statement about it, then that's when things started going. I think, don't quote me on this because my memory isn't the best, but there are videos. If I'm not lazy, I will link them in the description, but that probably won't happen. but if they're there, they're there. So, yeah. Anyway, I think that moment in like the discourse between the two is just a miscommunication. It made sense to me when I saw him explain it the second time, but I might just be sympathetic in general, and I might not be seeing this clearly. So there's that. And then Edwin goes on in his most recent video to talk about how he felt, oh fuck, I have to watch it again, but he, I guess, was disheartened because in his mind he was doing his best to represent everything as well as he could at the time. And one of Jacqueline's criticisms in the third episode was that he was taking too long to respond and say something about the promises that he was reassuring people at the time, because that's what he thought was the truth. And after that, there was nothing until his most recent video, where he does address that quite a bit. He talks about how embarrassed he is, how ashamed he is of having not vetted them enough. He talks about how just demoralizing this whole situation was, and how he's ashamed to have been part of, inadvertently and being manipulated, being a part of this documentary. And then after that, after he goes through it all again, he says he's done and he wants to move on, because at this point it's just taking way too much energy for him, and blah blah blah. He needs to move on and just not talk about Onision anymore in that situation, because it's been covered enough, frankly. Like, I think we can all agree on that, at least for everybody who's been in the know about the whole thing. From what I can see, at this point, Edwin was focusing on making a response video to the series as a whole, I think is what happened, and that's why it took so long for him to say everything he did in his video and like say, hey, I do not condone this behavior was not okay, I regret having unintentionally misled people into thinking it was one thing when it was not. I think he did a decent job holding himself accountable. I could be wrong, but that's my perspective. Having watched it once, I could watch it again and maybe have another perspective, but I think it's fair, and I think he did what he thought was best, and we can't fault him for being as thorough as he can. I think he did a decent job. The whole, I wouldn't say it's like beef or something. I consider it discourse between Jacqueline and Edwin, which was the point of this video. I think Jacqueline can come off as a bit condescending. I don't think she was trying to hurt him. I don't think Edwin was trying to mislead anyone. I just think it was something that honestly it should have been, and it was addressed, and now that's done. I think the main issue I'm having here is expecting someone to respond immediately to something. That's kind of how the internet works. When something happens, like, very quickly after, they expect a response from all parties involved, because obviously the internet moves very quickly, and if something is not desirable, people want answers. However, I think it's a little dangerous mindset to expect people to respond in what you would consider a relatively quick fashion. I think, like, silence might be damning, but until they make a statement, you can't assume guilt one way or the other. And that's where I kind of disagree with Jacqueline on the fact that, at least, well, at this point, there's new information, so maybe she's has a different opinion on it now, so I'm not going to speak for her on that. That's not really my place. But from my perspective at this point, I think Edwin has done his best to address it. And I think that, yeah, that's it. And as far as Jacqueline is concerned, I think it's important that she spoke up and voiced this concern, because it is important to address things. I just personally wouldn't have worded it the way that she did, but I'm a bit of a softie, so I tend to not speak so... Nope, those aren't the words I want to use. At the end of the day, I think Jacqueline just wanted to hold Edwin accountable. And Edwin he did, in my opinion, hold himself accountable. And now he needs to take a break because it's a lot. And I'd say that for everybody involved. Well, most people involved. Yeah. And then the rest should just be handled in DMs because it's really none of our business. Okay, wow, that was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. Now, the second thing I wanted to talk about, right? It's the whole Shane Dawson, Ryland Adams, or are they married? I can't remember. And Trisha Paytas thing. That whole entire thing, and Jeffree Star too, because he's always involved. Trisha disconnected herself from Shane after, I think it's 12 years total of friendship. It could be 10 years. There's a little bit of give or take there. I don't really know. And Trisha made videos about what she's going through, because that's what she does. It's, I think, one form of therapy. While probably not the best way to do it, at the very least, she doesn't keep it inside, because that's repression when it comes to trauma is not good. You gotta feel those feelings, man. It's painful, but it's better than keeping them blocked inside, because then it just makes it worse. And she denounces Shane after being his ride or die for a long time. And recently, Ryland made a podcast with his co-host, and he talked about how we love Trisha. I wish she had come to us so we could talk about it, and like all that and whatnot. And I just wish that she came to us. Otherwise, like, how can we help her, kind of thing. And if it were true that she hadn't said anything to them or communicated with them what's going on, then I would agree with Ryland. However, Trisha says that she did talk to them about it many times. I could be wrong. Again, not the best memory, but this is my perspective on the thing for now, at this point. And the fact that, if we are to believe, she talked to them, she was like, hey, this is not okay. I'm not doing well in this thing. I'm having issues. I need, and talks about it with them. And then Ryland goes on a podcast to say, oh, I wish she would have just told me. It's just two of my friends that are having issues and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just, in my head, I'm like, why are you saying Why is it all her responsibility when she's doing her best to communicate to you that she's having a problem? It's your job after that to reach out to her privately and be like, hey, what's going on? Clearly there's an issue here. Like, that's part of what being a friend is. When you see something wrong, you talk to them about it. You don't go on a podcast and say, oh, I wish that she did this and that she did that. You are the other person in the friendship, my dude. It goes two ways. Like, that makes me really upset because I have that very same issue that I have had in the past and currently, honestly, as I'm, working on myself mentally and trying to be better at communicating. Whenever I attempt to reach out to people I consider friends or would like to consider friends, and then they go off and they don't respond, or they do what Rylan did, which is, oh, you should have come to me. Well, it's not just my job to communicate. I'm doing everything in my power and mental state at the time to do what you were literally telling me I should do. You're putting all the responsibility of communication onto me when that's not how this works. Yeah, sorry. Went on a little bit of a rant there. My bad. Yeah, that hits a little close to home. But, long story short, miscommunication, not great. Handle it in the DMs, blah, blah, blah. Jacqueline, Edwin, I hope that you guys are okay and that you're getting the mental health care that you need and self-care and all that. And I hope that in the future we can all walk away from Onision and his terrible behavior for the rest of time, because we are all tired. And with the whole Trisha Paytas thing, communication goes both ways. Stop gaslighting people. It's not that hard. Not that hard. Okay, I'm done. Bye.